Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to A Stoic Plays, and in this episode we are stoically playing Endless Space 2, the early access version available now on Steam. Endless Space 2 is of course by Amplitude Studios, the makers of such games as Endless Space 1, Endless Legend, and Dungeons of the Endless. Basically, if the word endless is in the title, you are playing an Amplitude Studios games. And I absolutely love this company. I love every game they put out. You might say, Marcus, if that is the truth, why do you not have their games on your channel? And the real reason is, I was never good enough at Endless Legend or Endless Space 1 to compete with the channels that were playing it regularly, and I did have a showcase with my friend Grumzub of Dungeons of the Endless, which actually was a lot of fun. But I'm excited about this game. It is alpha, early access, and there are a couple bugs and things that need to iron out, which is why this is only a showcase and not a full Let's Play. But I'm excited to kind of get into it. I've played it a few hours, and I'm certainly not any good, so we can kind of learn together. How does that sound? So let's start a new game. And I really like the Vodyani. I want to learn how to play them. They're unique in that they do not colonize planets like the other races or factions. They actually create these big ships called arcs, which go and colonize whole star systems at once. And they suck all the life and energy out of them. And then you have scout ships that also suck the life and energy out of systems they're in. And in fact, you need to do this in order to grow your empire. And the hard part is the only ships that do it are your weakest ships. So to keep them alive, it's very difficult. But I think I'll be a little bit better now. Let's see, do they have a purple? Just because that's a very Byzantine color, and I like that. Spiral 4 is fine. Number of constellations. I did unique last time. Let's do few. What this does is there are space lanes that go between all the different stars. And in unique, I guess, you can get to every single place using the space lanes. But in few, you have to actually jump off the space lanes to get to a new constellation. You can send out probes to locate them. I've never messed with it. Why not give it a try? And yeah, it's fine. I don't care what the difficulty is because I'm probably going to die anyway. I'm not very good at this. I'm brand new at it. Let's give it a try. Alright, so I'm not going to play the intro video to the Vodyani to save time. You can, of course, go on YouTube and find it yourself. But I will say this. One of the reasons I chose this faction was because their music is absolutely amazing. Okay, so the guy who does all the music for the Endless Amplitude Studios games, probably the best game composer currently active right now, in my opinion. I absolutely adore the music to Endless Legend. I listen to it all the time, and so far from what I've heard, the music of this game is amazing too, and specifically, the music of the Vodyani is really good. Alright, you can pause and read this if you want. I've already read it all. So we start off in the planet Tichinomi. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it, but again, this is our giant arc ship. And the arc ship is a weird little beast because it does fight other ships in combat, and it's pretty solid, but you can't combine it in a fleet with other ships. So it has to fight by itself, basically. If you do have ships in the system, I suppose the enemies will fight them instead. So the first thing you want to do is look at your system. Well, I don't know if that's the first thing I do. I don't know if it's what you want to do. But it kind of tells you what you're working with. And so apparently, one thing I don't quite understand yet is the Vodyani, is if I can still suck the energy or whatever out of planets that are currently inhospitable to me. My guess is no, because considering you don't colonize anything, the word colonized here probably just means, in terms of this race, that we are exploiting it. And when it says population here, that probably refers to just population on the arc ship that I have. But anywho, one thing I love about the Endless games is, compared to other space exploration games, they have these like anomalies on the planets that are all really interesting and really cool. And they also have like minor races, which are also really interesting and really cool. There's only so many orcs in space and elves in space and humans in space that you can take. And what I like about these guys is they actually take the time to come up with unique, interesting fantasy factions that are believable but completely different than what you've seen. Now, I guess you can reduce it, and you can say, oh, Marcus, what are you talking about? These are basically just space vampires. But think about it for a second. What other game company has come up with space vampires? So, I don't know. What I love about this company is that they're exceptionally clever, in my opinion, in determining their races and all of that business. That, plus the music, plus the interesting UI. Alright, but anyways, we're in my home system, and just like Endless Legend, this is actually very much like Endless Legend in terms of the UI. You have research, economy, government, diplomacy. You have an academy, just like Endless Legend. So, the thing about the Vodyani is they don't eat normally. Again, they get their population from essence, which they absorb. However, they do grow slowly from food too. So it's not like food is completely worthless, like say for the Broken Lords in Endless Legend. And some people have been comparing this faction to the Broken Lords in space. But the food does allow them to grow, just slowly. But I think the first thing I want to build is probably the drone network, which gives you... Oh, here's that music that I love. Ah, the choir. It's so great. So it gives you production and food. So let's start with that. 4 turns. That's fine. Let's look at our research. So each faction has their own particular research, which in this case is their ships that they can build. And then there's, I guess, these general research areas. And like Endless Legend, you have to research a certain number of Tier 1 technologies before you can then move on to Tier 2 and so on. Although personally, I found that you kind of want all the technologies. It's really, there's not a lot of them you can leave behind. But actually, let's see, one thing I want to... I guess probably the first thing I want to do is I want to increase my production ability. So see, here we go with Xeno Industrial Infrastructure. Now this was more clear in Endless Legend because you could tell if you had a forest around your city. Here it's like plus 10 per forest, and I guess that means a forest planet? Not entirely sure. See, this is a... it looks like a jungly kind of planet. So I guess what I'm saying is I can't just look at this. Like, I would presume that this planet has forests on it. I mean, if you look at the picture, you see trees. But what does it mean per forest? That I don't quite get yet. It's a Terran planet, which means that it's got rolling oceans, vast grasslands, teeming forests, you know? So do they mean just any planet that has a forest on it? Or do they mean a specific planet that's covered in forest? That's the part I don't quite understand. Because I guess you can look closely at the planet. But again, it doesn't say, oh, this planet has 3 forests. So I don't quite get in the research screen where it says per forest. I'm just going to play it with the thought that it means a planet that has the potential for a forest. So a temperate or a boreal. Anything that's not like barren or covered in ice or covered in water. But I honestly don't know. That's something I'll have to learn. Either way, we need more production, so that's what we'll research first. And Varb Saint Zuinia has joined our empire. I like Varb, but the weird thing is this stuff is coming out of his nipple and kind of floating up into his head. I'm not quite... That's a little odd. Like, oh, that's a weird place to put your little essence spigot. I think there's less suggestive places that they could have put that. I don't currently have any points to assign. And I don't know what you're supposed to do, but I just go ahead and put Larb as the governor right away, because you're not doing a lot of action in your scout ships. So we're going to select him. And this will allow him to build some experience. He is a religious leader, which I think he's the same guy I got in the first game too. And he's a guardian. So these guys are very religious, but there are different factions. Like, for example, in my previous game, the militarist faction took over. So there's like political factions you have to pay attention to. Okay, so we've got our research. We've got that. So now let's just go check out the stars. Now, originally, I split up my scout fleet. And I may still do that, but again, if you find a planet with a minor faction, so not another empire, you can suck their essence, and you need to do that as quickly as possible. I don't think you can do it to an actual Empire faction unless you're at war with them, but again, I'm not entirely sure. But we're going to keep them split up just for right now while we explore. And the mouse wheel scrolls in and out. So as you can see here, we are a 4-spiral galaxy. It's beautiful, and we're here in this spiral down here. And since there are multiple constellations, we may be connected to another empire. We may not. Who knows? We'll have to find out. And I think I'm good. Just take a look at everything here. Okay, so the story of these guys, these space vampires, is that they were people who exploited their planet until there was no resources left, and they were going to die. But they discovered some artifacts for the virtual faction of the Endless. Now, the Endless are the precursor race of this universe. They are an all-powerful... I don't know, if you're familiar with not literature, but if you're familiar with reading, they're like the culture, I guess, the culture from Ian M. Banks' novels, but they're this ultimate race, but they split up into 2 factions. The Concrete, who, like you and me, were people, wanted to walk around physically interacting in the world, and Virtual, who uploaded their consciousness into computer systems and lived a life virtually. And for one reason or another, these 2 factions went to war with each other and destroyed the galaxy in their fight against each other. And so this particular faction, they discovered a relic of the Virtual, and that somehow taught them how to continue living. So as you can see, they're kind of virtual themselves. Like, I don't believe this is their real body. I believe they're actually virtual entities living inside these kind of shells. So again, like the Broken Lords, sort of, in space. Which is kind of neat. Alright, end the turn. 12 minutes in, haven't even gone past 1 turn, but I got a lot to say. Alright, so one of my favorite parts of games like this is exploration. Those first few turns when you're discovering new areas and new anomalies before you meet up with other empires. And what this game does, and I love it, I think it's kind of fun, is it gives you kind of an intro to each star system you explore, where it zooms in on each planet. It's pretty cool. Let's take a look. We discovered a new star system called Sable. So this one has outstanding dust, which is great. This one has outstanding food, not as great. And this one just sucks at well, it's okay in science. And then this one, again, is good in food. So if we were a typical faction, like humans or Sophons or whatever, this would be a great system to colonize because there are 3 planets with tons of food. But for the space vampires, that is not very useful. And there are these things called curiosities that you have to explore. Some are in the atmosphere and some are subterranean. And you can get loot from them or find deposits of resources. It's kind of a neat... Again, the exploration really makes it kind of fun. So I would probably want this place because of the dust. So it might be worth my while to be... This would be the first system that I colonize with my first arc. But what I need to do is start getting some essence. So I need to find a system with a minor faction. So this is the home world of the Endless. Wow. They were forced to depart when over-exploitation destabilized the core and crust, triggering seismic changes. Though it is a treasure of artifacts and holds a near mystical reputation, its history is one of sorrow. Oh, that must be here in Acellus. Yeah, Tor. Neat. So yeah, you can see systems even if you haven't necessarily explored them as long as they're within your window. So I guess we can take a look at this one. So they have an anomaly plus an unknown ruins. Another anomaly. High production. That's pretty good. That might be the homeworld of the Endless. Or is it this one? Tor, yeah. So this one has ruins and atmospheric curiosities. Outstanding production, which is great. So this might be a good system to put my arc in too. That way I'll claim the planet of the Endless and also huge amounts of production. A fair amount of science. But this is more of a production system and I like it. So that's an idea. And I guess we're going to end the turn again. Now, in order to create an arc, we need a certain amount of essence. I believe it's 500. And the only way to get that, again, is by either stealing it from minor races, or there's a thing you can produce which transmits your extra dust into essence, but it works really slow. So in Veni here, this one has titanium and Hyperium. So this is also a good system for us to colonize because it gives us access to the two important galactic resources. We have Veni 1, which is outstanding production. Veni 2. This is the one with all the resources and high production, so this is also a really good system. Outstanding production, yeah. Now see, one thing I need to learn, and I assume this is the case, but even though technically these guys don't colonize planets, I think you have to research the colonization tech for the planet in order to suck up its resources. So, for example, if I wanted to take this system here, and I wanted to make the most of it, I would have to get the colonization tech for lava planets. I'm pretty sure. Just like a regular faction would have to. Because if they didn't, if you can just colonize anything without researching it, that would make this faction, I think, a little overpowered. And then we found an asteroid belt, which we can't even look at because there's nothing here. But it does give you good production. Alright, let's head over here. Yep. So we're starting off in a pretty good system. This is much better than my first test game. The Electra system, huh? Outstanding production. There's a lot of outstanding production systems in this particular corner of space. This is probably... Oh, Jardonics and Titanium and Hyperion. Yeah, wow. This is a great starting position for an empire who's focused on production. Probably the human empire. I wonder if they're going to have the Sheridan in this one. Like, before they had the Earth people, the humans, I guess, the human faction, and then they had the Sheridan, which were exactly the same, just a different reskin. But they're one of my favorite factions, even though they were kind of the same. Still haven't found any minor races, though, which makes me sad. Okay, so a lot of things happening here. Just like Endless Legend, you have faction quest lines, and in the case of this faction, our quest line involves destroying all the pirates in the home constellation at the beginning, which we are currently not ready to do. And if you want to read it, you can pause it. It's just, it talks about these guys are very religious, and the leader of this people, her brother, is called the Heretic, or the Infidel, I'm sorry, and he actually seems kind of like a nice guy. He freed all the slaves, and these people hate him. So actually, I kind of feel bad that we're trying to get rid of him, because he seems like a decent fellow for a heretic. Okay, here we go. We got trouble here. Yellow Unknown Empire. They're gonna try to attack me, and they're gonna win. So I'm gonna try to retreat to keep my Leecher alive. Because the Leecher is one of the best ships to suck the essence out of planets. Even though I haven't found anything to suck the essence out of. Let's take a look at the new system, Deki. Titanium, strong magnetic field. It's a decent planet, I guess. It's a steppe planet. They might have space Mongols. Good dust. So it follows the same pattern as Endless Legend, in that deserts tend to accumulate more dust. That makes sense. And cold planets tend to accumulate more science. Alright, but no one lives here, though. That's the thing. Alright, our hero has gained skill. The first thing I like to give him is production. Now, here's another weird one. It says plus 10 production on system per hot. Now, the planets aren't called hot. They're called, you know, lava or whatnot. But I assume they mean when you actually look at a planet, see how it says hot here? So you get plus 10 because of this. So really, it's not doing anything for me right now. But all right, we got our drone network, though, which is awesome. So we can go Xeno-Industrial and get even more production. Or we can improve our dust and science with the cerebral reality. And I think it's cheaper, so I think I'm going to go with that. It's actually one of the cheapest things. It's cheaper than the sustainable farms, too. Only 3 turns. All right. And we got a new technology to research, too. What should it be? This will give me dust, which is great. This will give me more production per person. We don't have that many people right now, though. This makes people happy. Not that useful to me. Now, this is what I don't understand. If you see here in the corner, I can't move my mouse because it'll disappear. But if you see down in the corner, it says +2, and then it has a little cube-looking thing. I think what it means is +2 of everything, which is awesome. But it's per person. But this takes a long time to research, so I'm going to skip it for now. See how this takes, like, for instance, 120? Oh, I see. I'm looking at production cost. But this is 198. Okay, actually, never mind. I think they all cost the same. But building this would be very hard to do, so we're not going to go with it just yet. So rare earth foams gives you warp drive, which allows free movement, meaning you can go to other constellations. It's interesting that it's such an early tech. Like, I would think that the game, for strategic purposes, would want to keep you in your constellation for a while. Like, this should be like a tier 2 or tier 3 tech, but whatevs. And it gives you warp drive and colonized tropical. This sets the detection level to 3 and expedition power to 2 and allows you to colonize Boreal. This gives you science per person. Now, these things down here allow you to utilize the titanium and Hyperion. And this just gives you better defense, which we already learned. We started with it. I just don't know. This you'd have to build. I'd like to get something that benefits me right away. I kind of like the idea of detection level and expedition power. Not 100% sure yet what it does, but I think it does something good. And I don't have to build it. Oh crap. These ships moved here. And my ship is now dead. That sucks too, because that was my best leeching ship. Alright, another asteroid field. So we have not found a minor race, which as the... I keep forgetting our name here. As the something that starts with a V, we need them in order to get our essence. The Vodyani. So as you can see here, we have one law, which is Righteous Fury, which allows us to attack and invade an enemy territory while being at Cold War. We can now pick a next law. We can do Excess Tithe, Larger Hosts. And basically this is like a only your particular race can breed and not other races. But I think they force you to start with this one. Like, you can't go straight to this one. It costs too much. So the only one you can really afford is this one. Some more money is okay. That's fine with me. And I guess that's it. And this will be our last turn before I end the video. They don't get to be too long. But we need to find... Let's go back to our home system, I guess. there's enemies here that'll kill me. We need to find out what's in here. Hopefully there's a minor race living there, because otherwise we are out of room in this particular solar system, and we have nobody to steal essence from, which is not an ideal situation. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Marcus Aurelius. This is Endless Space 2, currently in early access on Steam by Amplitude. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have a good one.